My name is Mary Anderson. I'm the director of the county's Public Information Office, and I'm just going to welcome you and give you a few housekeeping details. The county executive is going to give some brief welcome remarks, and our section chief for climate programs and policy from the Department of Environmental Protection, Garrett, is going to go through briefly the proposed policy that you all, recommendations that you should all have a hard copy of. Sorry about that. Little tech challenge, which goes into what I'm going to be doing is I will be over here on the side and I'll be monitoring the questions that come in on the Teams link. My colleague Nordea Lewis, once we get finished with the remarks, she's going to stand here in the front of the center and she's going to ask people who have a comment to line up here. We ask that everybody be respectful of each other's time. We're trying to get as many of you a chance to speak as possible. So, did I leave anything out? With that, I will welcome our County Executive, Marc Elrich.
So, let's see if I can get this in a better place. There. So, first of all, thank you everybody for coming here. And we know this is an important topic and it's kind of timely. Montgomery County is beginning to deal with this issue a little bit differently. I'll just point out we have multiple data centers in Montgomery County today, and most people don't even know it. Most of the centers are smaller. They don't look like, none of them look like the big industrial things that have been planted in Northern Virginia. So you wouldn't know it to see the buildings that they're in. But they're here and they're alive, well, doing business. And they've been here for quite a while. They're not recent additions necessarily. So I want to thank my team for doing all this work. What you have is tonight our list of not necessarily recommendations, but things we think we all need to think about. And we tried to capture it from the work that was done in Frederick County and in Prince George's County, along with a couple of other projects where consultants had opinions about what should or should not be involved in data centers. And we kind of compiled this from other comments we got. And then this is not meant to be the draft of a bill. It is the beginning of a discussion of what ultimately will wind up in legislation, which we will work with the council to create. But we wanted to start a discussion, and we wanted to put as much stuff on the table to make sure that in framing this, we're thinking about all the questions that people have and all the issues that can be raised around this. Tonight's going to be very tight. The only questions we're going to deal with tonight are questions about data centers. So if you don't have a data center question, you will not have a question. That's our focus tonight, and that's not fair to everybody else, the amount of time we've got. We need to make sure everybody gets a chance to be heard. I want to acknowledge Natalie Fani-Gonzalez, give you a chance to introduce your colleagues.
Yeah, 1 second. Thank you so much. Good evening. Oh, there you go. Hey, already had an applause. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Natalie Fani-Gonzalez. I'm the president of the Montgomery County. Maybe I don't need to. I can do it. Okay. I'm the president of the Montgomery County Council. I'm here with my colleagues, Council Vice President Marilyn Balcom. I see Council Member Evan Glass, and I see Council Member Will Jawondo, and I know Council Member Lorian Sells is about to arrive. I know we have some colleagues watching online on the virtual link, so thank you so much for doing that. Sadly, not sadly, but there's a reason, we council members cannot speak at this event because it will be an Open Meetings Act violation. We have a zoning text amendment that Council Member Balcon and Sells and I introduced already. The three of us are part of the same Economic Development Committee, so we cannot speak here. We need to wait until the public hearing. That's why we're just going to be quiet and take notes, right? With that, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So I want to thank all of you for coming here, and I want to thank those of you who've already submitted written comments. We already have comments coming in, we're taking them, and people are reaching out with questions and concerns. We're not going to try to answer everybody's questions. So if you ask me, are you going to require power generation to be brought on site? We don't know. So we don't know any answer to any question that you actually have, because that's the whole point of going through a deliberative process and going through a process of getting people to have a chance to be heard and to be engaged in this. If I came here and told you this is what we were going to be doing, there'd be no point for you to be here tonight. You'd feel like you were cut out of the process already. So this for us is a listening experience mostly. And I want to acknowledge, the many stakeholders who are here. Many of the environmental groups are represented, people I've worked with for years, many residents who've written us who are not part of any particular group. I see representatives from PEPCO. Is there somebody from Constellation here? Nope. And I think somebody from one of the data centers that's talking about being in Montgomery County, I think, is either here now or is going to be here. So the rest of you represent a wide range of different folks inside this community. And I also want to say that Sarah Kogel-Smucker, who kind of led our effort in my office, can't be here tonight for personal reasons. Otherwise, her work was indispensable for us getting this report together for everybody. We're holding the forum because obviously data centers are expanding rapidly across the region, and it raises major land use, energy, and environmental issues for Montgomery County and everybody else. The energy issues are larger than the energy itself. It has to do with what's going to happen to our supply. It's not just the kind of energy, but what happens to the supply in this region. What are the consequences for us if data centers grow and electric power generation does not grow commensurate with that? They no doubt offer economic benefits. We'd be foolish if we said they don't. They definitely do offer economic benefits. They offered some job creation, more in the construction phase, much less in the operating phase. They do offer personal property tax revenue, and that can be pretty substantial. And if somebody is putting together a budget that does not have sufficient funds to do the things we need to do, additional revenues are important to the county. The things that we all depend on our county's ability to attract revenues. So we have to make sure if we're going to attract revenues, we do it responsibly. We don't sacrifice the community for money. That's something I want to be a part of. Then that we find a way to do this in a way that's responsible and that's beneficial to us. If it's not beneficial to us, it's not worth it. If it generates money but I cause brownouts in Montgomery County, it's not worth it to us. So we have to be thinking about, how we go about doing this in the best possible way. The county cannot control state energy policy. I dearly wish we could. We have absolutely no control over PJM, which is probably one of the most irresponsible agencies in the United States. And their utility generation decisions, their horrible planning, and their horrible permitting process. This is one of the most irresponsible agencies you will find. We can ensure that any data center development aligns with our climate commitments and does not undermine our progress on reducing emissions. We want regulations that ensure data centers contribute positively to the county's long-term goals rather than creating new burdens for residents or the environment. And the decisions that we make now will shape the county's climate goals, infrastructure needs, and community character for decades. This isn't just a land use question, it's a climate, energy, and environmental justice and quality of life question. So it is wrapped up in lots and lots of aspects of our lives in this county. The recommendations are intended as a starting point for discussion, not a final proposal. And the purpose of this forum is to listen and understand the community concerns, priorities, and ideas before legislation is enacted. So thank you again for taking the time to be here tonight. I'm going to turn this over to Garrett, and he's going to talk more about just telling you what's in the list of things, and then we'll go to questions. We're going to try to limit questions to 2 to 3 minutes. And if we do that, we're still only going to get to probably 20 to 25 people. So please make your questions, or if you have a suggestion, make it a suggestion and to the point. And I will give this over now. Thank you.
think I might have to hold this up here. No, these things are not made for some of us. And where the county executive mentioned questions, phrasing your questions in the form of suggestions will be very, very helpful for tonight, because as he said, we probably won't be able to answer very many of your questions. So thank you, Mr. County Executive. My name is Garrett Fitzgerald. I'm a section chief for climate programs and state policy in the county's Department of Environmental Protection. Here actually filling in tonight for Sarah Kogel-Smucker, the county's climate change officer, whose leadership on this issue is very deeply appreciated. As the county executive noted, data centers have really emerged as a major issue requiring very thoughtful policy consideration here in the county and everywhere these days. This would be the case even if no new data centers were ever going to be constructed in Montgomery County. Right? We've all seen a barrage of news reports recently. Our region is a global epicenter for the data center industry. Tremendous amounts of electricity move through our region from power plants to data centers. Many of us do benefit from the services that data centers provide, but all of us are very likely to help pay for this industry in some form or fashion. That said, in communities where data centers themselves are built, we can expect a variety of impacts. Some of those are positive impacts, employment, tax revenue, et cetera. Some of those are less positive impacts. Noise, energy use, local air pollution, public health impacts, visual blight, ecological impacts, other changes to the communities in which these facilities are built. And we've heard a lot of stories from a lot of other communities where data centers already exist now, and we want to learn from those stories. We are perhaps still a bit early in our learning journey, if you will, on data centers, but we have begun to research and think about these issues. County Executive Elrich just noted that he recently released a draft set of policy recommendations. I believe many of you have seen those. I know we were passing those around today. I'm going to summarize those for you very quickly before we turn it over to you. So first, from a policy and process standpoint, the County Executive has recommended that the county establish a data overlay zone, which would enable us to allow data centers throughout the county, but we would limit them to industrial areas. He's also recommended that data centers, new data center projects would be required to go through the conditional use process, which would subject them, each of them, to review by the planning department and allow for public input through processes that have been developed over time. The county executives made a number of policy recommendations to try to optimize the environmental outcomes associated with any data centers that might be developed here in Montgomery County. That's probably half the document that you're looking at. These include maximizing the installation of solar on site, meeting a high percentage of energy use through clean energy, restricting the use of diesel generators and requiring best-in-class air pollution control technology on any diesel generators that are installed, doing what we can to avoid the need for those diesel generators to ever be turned on by requiring battery storage to be included with the project to try to enable the data center to meet its energy needs through a short duration outage of the electric grid. Responsible water discharge practices, stormwater management, sustainable operations plans addressing energy and water and green design elements, and ongoing reporting on environmental performance and accountability for that performance associated with all of those issues that I just talked about. So a lot of different ways in which we can improve the environmental performance of data centers through policy approaches. The county executive has also recommended that the county's noise ordinance be revisited. We have heard a lot of complaints from other communities that noise becomes a major local issue, and we don't know if our existing noise ordinance does all that it needs to help protect our communities from those problems. So we want to take a deeper look at that. We don't know what we will find, but we know it's something that's worth looking into. He also recommends increased setbacks and visual buffers to help minimize conflicts with nearby residential properties. He'd like to see new data centers bring new clean energy online to help meet their power needs. And he advises that we look at restricting data center development in ecologically sensitive areas such as cold and cool watersheds, where very high temperature water discharge from data centers can cause some very significant ecological problems. That concludes my summary of the draft policy recommendations that we issued earlier. We consider these, and I think it says this in the document, we consider these a starting point to a conversation. We anticipate learning a lot more through our dialogue this evening and the dialogues that we will be having in the weeks to come. And that list will very likely evolve. We recognize that a number of council members are also working on this issue right now. Very much appreciate their leadership working on this too. We've noticed already some strong synergies in the thinking that we've been doing, which is fantastic. And I want to end it there by just thanking you all again for being here. We're really looking forward to hearing your thoughts, your comments and suggestions, even more than your questions, your comments and suggestions about what are the issues that we should be thinking about? What are the things that you are worried about? What would you want to know? What would you want to see in local policy? We're in an absorbing mode right now, so we really want to hear all of your input this evening. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mary to walk us through the rest of the program. Thank you.
Just a couple of other housekeeping. I understand from folks who are watching online that they don't see where they can comment. If you look at the top of your screens, I believe it's on the upper left-hand side, upper corner, there's something that says Q&A session. If you hit on that, you will start to see the chat. That is what I will be monitoring from my computer over here. My colleague Nordea Lewis is going to be standing here in the center with a microphone. And before everybody dashes up here, I'm going to repeat again, we've got a lot of people. We have a finite period of time. I'm going to ask you to be respectful of other people's time. And if you're going on a little too long, I might gently prod you to give a chance to somebody else. I don't have a hook. I promise I'm not going to do that. But we just want to give as many people a chance to say something as possible. So with that, if I can get people who have comments to line up here, and we will get to as many of you as possible. Oh, and please, when you, before you speak, if you would introduce yourself, your name, and just tell us where you live. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Mark Roth.
One more thing. And one more thing. I'm sorry, the folks online are saying they're having a hard time hearing some people, so when you get up to speak, if you would speak loudly so the audience online can hear you. My apologies.
My name is Mark Roth. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer and Information Systems, and after an almost 40-year career, my last 10 years before I retired in 19, I spent at the NIH as a Senior Linux Systems Administrator. I've worked in data centers. First of all, it's going to raise our electric rates. Pepco's already trying to hit us with 23%, and they will hit us for more, I guarantee. There will be increases in water and sewage rates because they draw a lot of water and there will be a lot of wastewater. Thirdly, no place I have ever heard of that gave tax breaks has ever gotten their money back from the tax breaks. The number of jobs that will be created will be construction, assuming that Kristi Noem's ICE goons don't kidnap half the construction crew. After that, there will not be thousands of jobs. There will not be hundreds of jobs. I have worked at a data center. There will be 2 to 3 dozen total. That's not a lot of taxes. What they've got so far, do we even have letters of intent, which is sort of a plan, or is there any signed contracts? Because a lot of these data centers, especially the large ones, are all imaginary. And finally, there needs to be a plan for obsolescence, because in 3 to 5 years, everything in there will be obsolete. All of it will have to be ripped out, and it will go away. As it is, it will take a year to 2 to build a large data center, And by that time, within a year or so, there'll be a new generation of chips and a new generation of backplanes that will have to be everything will have to be replaced. So in general, data centers, especially large data centers, are a terrible idea. And I'd like to give you this.
Yeah.
This is the long version, and it's a coverage of it covers what I'm talking about and why everyone is, except that AI people are talking about the AI bubble. It's going to collapse. How do you know the data centers aren't going to be out of money by the end of the year?
Thank you for your comments.
Just real quickly, we have no contract. If there's any contract, it's a contract between the data center provider and the property owner, which we're not quite sure the status of all that right now. And I don't usually defend PEPCO, but PEPCO's not in charge of the rates. This comes back to the PJM. PEPCO has been barred for years from producing energy in the state of Maryland. The energy comes from somebody else, and they buy it in very expensive auctions, and we all get taken to the cleaners.
So, County Executive Elrich and all, my name is Beth Landry, and I'm Chesapeake Climate Action Network's Central Maryland Coordinator. Thank you for hosting this forum and sharing your policy recommendations with us. CCAN is the largest and oldest grassroots organization dedicated exclusively to fighting for bold and just solutions for climate change in the Chesapeake region, and we have nearly 7,000 members in Montgomery County. We know that Montgomery County is a climate leader. Right now, Maryland families face some of the highest electricity costs in the nation, and these costs keep rising. We deserve real solutions that give us control over our energy future, not just more expensive bills. We believe that data center build-out must be sustainable, transparent, and like tonight, have community input. They should come online at a pace where they can meet their energy demands with 100% clean energy. We can do this using on-site clean energy generation and off-site generation from clean sources such as power purchase agreements and renewable energy credits. We're encouraged about your sixth policy recommendation, which includes maximizing clean energy. It's essential that we not only maximize but require clean energy for data centers to meet their electricity needs. It's imperative that Montgomery County and the state require data centers to source their own clean energy and to prevent compromising local and state climate goals. Furthermore, the county should set both an energy efficiency and water efficiency minimum. Finally, we urge the county to require improved and routine reporting on the amount of energy and water that data centers use.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Aaron. I live in Silver Spring. Thank you for holding this and for your thoughtful staff, and to our wonderful council that is here today as well. Thank you all for being here. I'm not going to speak to the environmental stuff. There are a lot of people here that know more about that than I do and can speak more eloquently about it. I come to it strictly as a dollars and cents issue for my household personally. You know this as well as I do. Our utility bills are out of control. My PEPCO bill, my gas bill, I cannot even imagine what my gas bill is going to be like this month. And quite candidly, these things are just going to put rocket fuel on all of those utility costs. That has to be the focus. The focus of these data centers cannot be county revenue. It cannot just be county revenue. It has to be revenue that goes back to residents in some fashion. And so because what I worry about is you're going to have all these data centers, you're going to have lots of money flowing into the county, and then it's going to be for some program or something that I can't use or that I can't take advantage of, that's income restricted so that regular middle class people don't get to take advantage of it. And so, and then on top of that, we'll be paying the higher utility costs, so we get nothing out of it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it just can't be about county revenue. It has got to be redirected in some way directly into residents' pockets who are going to be footing the bill for this stuff. I'm not instinctively against data centers, but you've got to somehow pair a tax cut or a fee cut in some fashion. I don't know how, but that is something that I hope you all will consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. My name's Mikey Stotts. I live in Dickerson, and I have a farm in Poolsville. Property rights matter, especially when we're talking about land use that's already permitted under existing zoning. Data centers are an allowable use on industrial zone land, which is exactly what the Dickerson power plant site is. The idea that a loud or organized set of objections would override an allowed use is not only unrealistic, it sets a dangerous precedent. If we abandon predictability in zoning, we undermine the entire system. I am a dairy farmer and a cheesemaker, not an economist, but I do remember the most basic lesson from Econ 101. When demand begins to go asymptotic while supply remains stagnant, the outcome is not ambiguous. Prices will skyrocket. Data centers consume electricity at an extraordinary scale. Introducing that level of demand in an already constrained system without adding supply alongside it guarantees volatility. My farm is just a few miles away from the Dickerson site. Energy is already one of our fastest rising input costs, and dairy operates on razor-thin margins already. When energy prices become unstable, it can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. This is what's frustrating about the data center conversation, is that it often seems divorced from the energy generation, and they're treated as two separate conversations. They are inseparable. If we are serious about economic resilience, agricultural preservation, and climate goals, new demand must be paired with new supply. If only there was a shovel-ready proposal from a local farmer to generate 5 to 10 megawatts of clean energy just a few miles away from the Dickerson site without removing a single inch of the land from its current or future agricultural production. Boy, that seems like something we could all get behind. Alas, I guess we'll just have to keep looking for that farmer. Livestock would continue to graze, the land remains farmland, and local power is generated exactly where new demand is being created. This is not an abstract idea, it is a practical, workable solution. Opposition to proposals like this often come from a small group of self-described preservationists whose approach is fundamentally Luddite in nature, and I mean that descriptively, not pejoratively. It resembles the development philosophy of a lot of the Amish dairy farmers that I work with. They are good people and excellent stewards of the land, but their worldview is intentionally resistant to modern infrastructure, even when that infrastructure can coexist with agriculture. Montgomery County cannot be governed as if it were an Amish settlement. Data centers are coming just as cell towers, breweries, distilleries, wineries, agritourism, and farm stays eventually came. Many of the same voices that oppose those now oppose both data centers and community solar projects that could responsibly power them. If policy is shaped by a tiny group that reflexively resists all change, we're still going to end up in the same place. It's just going to take a lot longer, cost more, and cause more damage along the way.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. You're coming up on 3 minutes.
Yep.
Thanks.
We have an opportunity to do this intelligently, pair growth with infrastructure, pair asymptotic demand with real supply, and support solutions that strengthen rather than undermine the agricultural economy that Montgomery County values so much. Thanks.
Kevin Walton for the Climate Coalition in Montgomery County. We are a coalition of about 20 climate and environmental groups in the county, and we really appreciate this opportunity to share our thoughts about how data centers can be developed. So the main point that you're bringing up is that we haven't figured this out for Montgomery County and that we need to do that. We are totally aligned with that issue. So when our neighbors in Frederick County and Prince George's County came to the same conclusion, they put moratoriums on the approval and accepting of permits for data centers. And Carroll County is also moving in that direction. So our recommendation is that while we figure out this very important process, that we put a moratorium on data centers and we give this process the time it needs in order to affect the data center development, both ones that are coming and the ones that are in process, as well as ones that are going to come down the road. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Karen Metchis. I am also with the Climate Coalition Montgomery County and representing the 20-member organizations. I'm also with the Sierra Club of Montgomery County Executive Committee. And I want to double down on the request for moratorium, including on the current proposal for the Dickerson site, until we have full information, cost-benefit analysis, and full and prohibit non-disclosure agreements, complete transparency on the process. So we, for starters, for the Dickerson site, it's not just one data center. It's starting out with 7 data centers and with the potential for many more on that same site. So we want to make sure that the Dickerson has a public hearing and not closed hearings with the Office of Zoning, since they already have a conditional use approval from the planning board. And I think this is what's stimulating everyone to, after several years of conversation, to suddenly stand up and wake up to this issue. So thank you, and please don't take any final action until we have full cost-benefit analysis, environmental impact analysis, and public disclosure. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you for meeting with us tonight and listening. My name is Carl Held, also with the Climate Coalition of Montgomery County, and I have some general points. Number one, we'd like you to require that data centers develop a plan to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2035 to align with the Climate Action Plan. We would like the ZTA proposal to put in that there's going to be no expansion beyond the industrial zones that are allowed for this type of facilities, and that there's a complete ban on centers near residential tracts and sensitive areas like housing of worship, hospitals, and schools, and avoid siting near underserved and overburdened communities. And lastly, we would like you to require data centers to limit water use at times of declared water shortages, and also prohibit the use of on-site groundwater or potable water for cooling purposes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm in Rockville, and I'm a water and wastewater controls engineer, as well as a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. And thank you. When I'm reading through this proposal, I see two kind of contradictory things that concern me. There's a mandate of only 10% renewable combined with BYOG. What this essentially means is that 90% of the power for this comes from BYOG using thermal power, which is very water intensive. It effectively, the outlined legislation effectively mandates that a very high amount of water be used by generation in Montgomery County. It seems ridiculous to set that line at 10% when the BYOG study cited in this specifically cites an application where very high renewable rates were set. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants these data centers here. This is generally, the public does not want this. The long-term benefits are unclear. It's extremely toxic. And if we're going to sit here as a state and say, well, data centers are happening no matter what, let's just get a couple dollars out of this. There's another party that says, you know, F this, let's get ours. And it's not represented here in Montgomery County. This is not what the voters have asked for. Thank you.
Just to clarify, this is not a proposal. We put together a list of recommendations that have come from a variety of different groups, and we fully expect the proposal to come out of these recommendations that come tonight, and recommendations that come from subsequent discussions.
Greetings, County Executive Elrich and esteemed members of our community. My name is Carl Rios. I'm the small business owner of Rios Enterprises. I've been living in Montgomery County in Bethesda, working as a cloud architect with primarily federal government agencies since I was honorably discharged from the military in 2018. I'd like to point out some concerns. This is more of a comment than a question about data centers in Montgomery County. I don't see mitigation for in the legislative and policy recommendations draft. I saw that the draft has many references to documents from the PG County Data Center Task Force. So I reviewed some of them. There is an Appendix F of the PG County Qualified Data Centers Report. Common concerns section, there's many comments that are focused on energy demand and grid strain, and that's where my comment's going to focus on. I don't want Montgomery County residents to shoulder the costs of constantly updating electric grid infrastructure for the benefit of the highest consumers of electricity, the data centers. We've seen this play out across the river already with our neighbors in Virginia. Having said that, there is a great opportunity here to partner with data centers to solve energy problems the county is already experiencing. We've already heard comments about rising energy bills. We already have strains on the grid. Having data centers only exacerbate the problems on the energy grid if legislation and policy follow the status quo of other counties. What if Montgomery County looks at data centers as partners, not just in economic stimulation, but partners in solving the very same problems that we are concerned that they will worsen? The draft document proposes that data centers do a bring your own generation or BYOG policy and maximize clean energy. Whatever clean energy method is used by data centers to achieve 80 to 100% BYOG, this policy requirement needs to be updated to reflect the reality of energy consumption and usage in data centers. Hyperscale data centers require massive operational energy usage, but they also require a lot of energy on standby for peak periods. Should the standby energy come from the same energy suppliers that supply residents and other businesses in the county? I propose a solution that would mitigate or reduce the probability of this happening, and also equitably distribute the responsibility of paying for the electric grid. If we want data centers to do BYOG, then we should allow them to do so with their own clean energy sources that will provide standby capacity for the benefit of data centers in the communities in Montgomery County. We should work with PJM and PEPCO to buy energy generated by hyperscale data centers at competitive tiered rates and make that energy available for local distribution energy networks. And I specifically mean the surrounding communities, neighborhoods of future data centers. In addition, for those who are concerned about living close to data centers, what if part of the incentive to living close to them was having a data center variable cashback discount to a residential electric bill? This could be done by taking the transmission costs for energy generated by data centers and discounting them, as the use of transmission infrastructure with my proposal will not be necessary.
Sir, can I ask you to wrap up? Sorry.
Got it. Yes. So my vision is that these BYOG hyperscale data centers could be major local energy generators. This would reduce the strain on current energy generation sources and transmission. I don't see them as necessarily a source of strain for the community, but an opportunity of lasting strength. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Jorge Aguilar. I'm here with Food and Water Watch on behalf of our thousands of members in the county to echo the sentiments of previous speakers and call for a moratorium on data centers in the county, based just primarily even from a practical point of view, just in terms of even if one were to come up with the supposed gold standard, it's going to take a while to get there. And meanwhile, we know that, as County Exec Elrich said, there's contracts being signed, right, between property owners and potential data centers. Somebody's mentioned Dickerson already and how there's things moving there already. And so it's unclear, right, would we grandfather these folks in, or right, like what happens once these rules come into place? So I would encourage the county to protect itself right now. There are not really lessons to be learned from really yet other states, because these data centers are much bigger and has been expressed, use more water, need more electricity, bring e-waste and all sorts of other problems. And again, the county should protect itself. It is the practical approach. Really, we're having a serious conversation, not to come up with some rules in the future. Some of them are good, but they're not what we need at this moment in time. I was in Annapolis earlier today, where the conversation is about how we co-locate them with nuclear power plants or new gas plants. So it is already, that conversation is already happening, and that could easily come down on the county before we have protected ourselves here in the county. So there's all of that happening. Yeah, all that is happening. So again, I urge the county to put a moratorium in place. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I live in Rockville, and I'm also a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. And to echo what people have said, I support the moratorium on data centers. And on top of all of the energy environmental concerns, I want to ask, how are you going to prevent companies like Palantir from using the data centers to support their AI systems like Immigration OS, where they're using these systems to build a surveillance network and create dragnet operations for ICE that are like filling our immigrant communities with fear. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
My name is Ben Mann. I live in West Bard. For the last 10 years, I've led the data center capital markets group practice at Cushman and Wakefield. Folks seem to be under a misunderstanding that the data center industry is beating down the doors to move into Montgomery County. It's really not the case. I was invited as the expert speaker at Prince George's County's Data Center Task Force last year. And I can tell you, yes, the Dickerson site is certainly attractive. It's kind of a unicorn sitting on infrastructure and water the way that it does. But, you know, if folks don't want data centers here, you don't have to pass legislation. You can really just do nothing. The county has probably a bigger opportunity than any other county in America just by virtue of proximity to Loudoun County. When you go over into Poolesville, as the crow flies, you're extremely close to Ashburn. Latency and the speed of light governs a lot of the attractiveness of a data center development. I will say, if you are going to do data centers, the biggest thing you want to do politically is look at where the high voltage lines are, and that should govern where they go. Because if you think this meeting is rowdy, wait until you come out announcing a 10-mile-long extension of the lines where you're going to use eminent domain to take people's land. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm Tom Clark. I represent the International Brotherhood of Electric Workers, Local 26. We're about 13,000 members strong. 912 are in the county. They could not join me tonight because they're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning because they're going to Northern Virginia or Frederick for the work. We don't want to be like Northern Virginia. I would look at the Frederick model and responsible. You know, in the 19th century, it was the railroad was the infrastructure. 20th was the American highway. This is the infrastructure of today. All the parents and the grandparents, everyone wants to see little Johnny's video clips of him in the Christmas play, and this is how it's done. So I suggest just smart. You're doing it right. Take your time. Council, take your time. Everyone do it. But like the county executive said, he said, let's do this in the best possible way. But by all means, let's do this. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steve Shapiro, and I want to begin by thanking the county executive and his team, everybody who's speaking tonight, for the clarity and seriousness with which you've articulated both the county's emerging principles about data center development. By way of a brief background, I'm an energy and environmental mediator. I've served as a public policy mediator for the state of Maryland, and I'm co-founder of Praxis Energy, where we help communities and governments navigate major infrastructure impacts through collaborative development agreements. Some call it community benefit agreements. I've listened carefully this evening and through the news. Two very real tensions continue to play out, and both deserve respect. On the one hand, there's a strong call for rigorous study, transparency, and protection, so we don't unintentionally harm our neighbors, our land, our water. And on the other hand, there's pressure to move forward, to secure revenues, balance our budgets, and fund essential county services. Both concerns are legitimate, and neither should cancel the other out. Montgomery County is in a position to shape the future, not just react to it. One way to do that, consistent with the county's stated principles, is to integrate local decision-making with the state's legislative study program, leveraging state and academic resources while using projects like Dickerson as a prototype. A well-structured collaborative development agreement can bring the county community stakeholders, the developers, and neutral experts to the table before permits are finalized, either locking in an enforceable protections and agreement or demonstrating clearly and responsibly when the answer should be no. If we build that table with a shared respect and purposeful study, the county's decisions will be stronger, more defensible, and reflective of our community values. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hannah Wang. I'm from Rockville, Aspen Hill area. I'm just a resident here. As I want to echo a lot of what I've heard already, just making sure that we're not on the hook to pay for all the increase in energy costs here. That's a major concern. I know it's already a huge burden for a lot of us, so if we can really make sure that that's not impacting us as taxpayers. And also the water impact, again, just making sure that we're doing that well, managing the wastewater. We're not harming the environment further. And also, if we can have a way to keep these companies accountable, accountability is really important if they're going to be here and they're going to be impacting our communities. Someone needs to be there to make sure that they're actually doing what they've promised, and they're not getting away with things, they're not being bribed from things or anything. Like, there has to be accountability too.
Good evening, and thanks for holding this forum. My name is Roger Stark. I'm an attorney with over 3 decades of experience in the energy sector. I've worked on billions of dollars of energy projects in the U.S., and for the past 7 years, I've worked for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission on gas pipeline rates and utility rates. So I know a little bit about what's happening in the environment that I think everyone in this room should know a little bit more about. I want to focus on 2 specific items that have already been mentioned. One is the infamous PJM issue. PJM can be criticized on a number of levels, but it is a reality that must be confronted. On January 16th, the White House issued it issued a bulletin and a fact sheet instructing PJM to spend $15 billion on fossil fuel projects. They don't use the words, but it's implicit, fossil fuel projects in the PJM territory. That is about to happen, and if you don't want it to happen, you need to plan to address the issues that must be addressed for PJM to move forward. It's a very cumbersome process, it's a very difficult institution, but it's something that must be addressed. Secondly, on the issue of BYOG, or bring your own generation, the issue becomes a matter of whether there's a fossil fuel solution that can be implemented in time. There are studies that show that the manufacturers of fossil fuel generation equipment are already 20 gigawatts behind the demand for those units. But what that means is anybody who wants to build a fossil fuel project is probably going to stand in line for the next 3 or 4 years. And that will affect the feasibility of many of these projects. So I would urge folks to look at these projects from the perspective of, one, are they interconnected with the grid? If they are, there are a bunch of things that need to be ticked through. If they are not interconnected, you can take them off the list. But secondly, if they're not fossil fuel, then what are they going to use, renewable energy or something else? And that should all be evaluated in the context of an environmental checklist. Thank you.
So I think everyone here would agree that we all want a 100% clean energy future. That every person in this room agrees with. And also that Maryland's grid is not set up to maintain the energy consumption that we are currently going through today. So how will these data centers be powered? Right now, 3 of our neighbor states are piping gas from the Marcellus Shale directly to power plant and data center campuses where the energy generated never leaves the site. Look at Homer City in PA. And right on our border in West Virginia and Virginia, the environmental effects to our state we will have no control of. Water for cooling, Virginia is disproportionately using the Potomac River today. The Dickerson site, if we allowed this, gas-powered data centers, would become the most valuable piece of real estate in the country immediately. Maryland should be fairly compensated for that fact. The fiber is there. The industry is headquartered across the river. If Maryland allows for piped gas to power data centers now, our private partners, such as Terra, who currently owns the site, potentially Constellation, who has our only nuclear plant right now, would be excited to partner with Maryland to build out our infrastructure, building 4 new nuclear reactors to satisfy all of our current energy consumption on the Chesapeake Bay.
Hello, my name is Anthony Gaete. I am a local high school student at Blake. So I just wanted to make a comment about the BYOG thing. That is at a minimum 80%, and I think that's unfair to residents of this county. It is a 300 megawatt site, and at 20%, that's still 60 megawatts that are going to be, that residents of this county are going to be forced to pay for. At minimum, that's like a 50% increase in our energy bills. And in a worst case scenario, that's 3 times the energy bill for 1 year. And I just don't think that's fair to the residents of this county. And I think the BYOG benefit should be at a minimum 90%. And that's all. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Ksenia Coulter. I live in downtown Silver Spring, and I'm involved with Falkland Chase Tenant Association. So I want to tell you a story about my next-door neighbor. They're in rent-stabilized affordable housing unit. She's a stay-at-home mom with 2 small kids. And last month, her Pepco bill was $400, and this is 2-bedroom townhome. So I know this is one of the biggest concerns our residents express is how much their energy bills grow. So I think that if we're going to have data centers, they must generate their own energy. They must bring in some clean energy. Maybe smaller data centers that won't take up as much energy and won't take the whole county down if the industry changes. My second point is, how would the noise regulations, for example, be enforced? Will it be up to the residents to monitor and report? And what is the oversight cost over pollution regulations, for example? That is something that we have to consider. I know when our landlord tries to take advantage of us, we have to knock down the doors of code enforcement and CC multiple council members in order to get things that we're entitled to maintained correctly and fixed. So I know there's always a cost to enforcing a regulation. So that's something I want us to think about and consider.
We've got a whole lot of questions online that I'm finally able to see, so I'm going to go, or comments, so I'm going to go to a couple of them. Jeff asks, how can we block Terra? I'm going to say this as a comment. Jeff wants to know how we can block Terra Innovations from turning the plant in Dickerson into a data system. Can't they just build housing? That's what we really need. That's the first one. The second comment is also from Jeff, so I'm going to skip to somebody else for a moment. No, sorry, Jeff, I got to give other people a chance. Lee says, what is the best mechanism for residents to voice their complete opposition to the construction of any new data centers? It feels like our representatives are talking about this like it's a foregone conclusion that we need to allow their construction and can only make minor restrictions, such as 10% more renewable energy, more tree setbacks. But the facilities do not carry their weight in our economy and do not justify the environmental impacts. They drive up energy costs, use our precious water, and create very few jobs. They are largely being built right now by companies investing in generative AI that is not serving the public. We don't need more data centers, and the conversation should be more expansive in including that perspective. I'll just make a note. There is an email address that people can also send in comments. It is climate@MontgomeryCountyMD, all one word, .gov. Anonymous, I'm particularly concerned about dumping the wastewater into the Potomac. What is being done to address this? I'm going to go back here, and then we'll get back to other questions.
So I have a question. Are you guys asking questions about data centers?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting that you asked us that and nobody else. Doesn't that seem a little weird?
No,
why not?
only for you.
It's like you didn't ask anybody else that question. County Executive Marc and council members, thank you for hosting a forum and providing an opportunity for community input. My name is Tyler McClinathan, and I'm here with the Montgomery County branch of the Democratic Socialists of America. In the press release for this event, as well as your opening remarks, you were quoted as saying that we need to make sure any policy we adopt reflects the values and the priorities of the people who live here. And I agree with you that the decisions that we make now about data centers will affect us for years to come. And the data and public opinion overwhelmingly points to data centers having a detrimental impact to working people in government localities. What do working people get when data centers open in their backyard? Poisoned water, increased utility bills, police and ICE empowered with AI data to continue to terrorize their communities. No significant economic benefits. You mentioned yourself, limited jobs, limited tax revenue. Data centers only benefit the already wealthy and powerful. So this goes without saying. I'm wholeheartedly against the county considering data centers in any capacity. But beyond that, I would encourage you and the rest of the council that's in this room, and folks who are running as well, because I'm watching you too, excuse me, what type of county do you want to live in? What legacy do you want to leave? Michelle mentioned earlier that what are data centers even used for in the first place, right? Who benefits from this technology that we're just assuming is going to happen? Who gets to reap the benefits of this? It's already the wealthy and powerful. I'll leave you with this. You hold the levers of power in this county, and you have the power to build a county where all people have an opportunity to thrive. We know what helps people thrive. Data centers aren't it. Please consider investing the county's resources in working people. Thank you.
My name is Samir, and I'm a resident of Rockville and a proud member of the Democratic Socialists of America. I am here to speak out against not only the Dickerson data center, but any data center that tries to open up here in Montgomery County. We don't have to look so far to see that in North Virginia, energy prices will increase by 25 to 70% by the end of the decade, according to a study from the Jack Kemp Foundation. It also states that by 2030, data centers are expected to account for almost half of Virginia's electricity use, right? So in addition, a large data center can use 5 million gallons of water per day. I've been also told that for water cooling, for this specific data center, water is supposed to be coming in at the same temperature and out at the same temperature, and it's essentially lossless, right? But there's an NDA on the system, but we don't have enough information on how that works. I'd like to have that information. This also doesn't really mean much to me because you're still releasing toxins into the water regardless. Now onto these data centers and what they're actually used for, right? So Terra Energy is essentially acting as a landlord from my perspective to anyone who wants to lease. So example, in theory, if AWS wanted to come in, they could very well do that, right? And I think that we're opening up Pandora's box for surveillance companies like many others have mentioned, like Palantir to come in and continue to spy on immigrants, giving information to ICE to deport them. And then Ares Lab is an Israeli company in Moko that's essentially using this information to commit genocide in Palestine. So stuff like that, right? So by the way, so my point is that these companies can come in, use AWS, and lease these, and will be even more complicit in genocide and deporting immigrants here at home. You may also bring up the fact that jobs this brings to Montgomery County. This is essentially a job vacuum, right? We're effectively occupying a large footprint while employing little to no full-time staff once they're built for operational use. We could build solar farms and use this land for 100% green energy redevelopment. My point is we need data centers out now. As they are bad for the environment, will likely be used for surveillance technologies to commit genocide and deport immigrants, and act as a job vacuum here in the county. Sorry, one more thing. And I just want to ask some questions. Is there a formal environmental impact study or other technical considerations for the data center? And I want to reiterate the last question, how you ensure that companies like Palantir won't come in and help.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Cooper. I live in Montgomery Village. I want to thank you for providing those guidelines, or the proposed guidelines today. It was interesting to see the way you guys are thinking about this. I just had 2 points as I was kind of reviewing those tonight. The first is that I was really happy to see kind of a strong proactive voice about the way you were trying to emphasize for the needs for clean energy and how they needed to be YOG and things like that. I didn't notice, though, as many, I guess the way I'm putting it, proactive voice on the requirements around water usage. Those seem to be tied up in the way that the sustainability plan was going to be proposed by the data center producer. And I guess my recommendation would be to be more proactive, because the pessimist in me would expect them to design sustainability solutions that aren't really what the local environment needs. The second point I wanted to stress was that I've heard a lot of comments tonight about the importance of how even if we take the assumption that data centers are economically valuable now, there are a lot of good reasons to think they're not going to be economically viable later, either due to aging infrastructure, the needs for energy costs rising over time as they need to supply new graphics cards and whatever other resources. So I would hope that the proposals that you guys put together has longevity in mind too, so that they were keeping in mind on how they're going to adapt to those. Thank you.
If I could just add something, we know water was one of the most important issues that people raised over this. Our assumption as a baseline is water goes back in the river at the same temperature it comes out. They have the ability to do that. There's no reason why they shouldn't do that. And there are also data centers now that aren't using any water at all for cooling. They're using inert gases for cooling and using that to both cool the chips and cool the center. So it's possible to cool without water, but if they do use water, it's certainly possible for us to demand that it goes back into the river at the right temperature. And I can't imagine the council or me doing anything that would give them any leeway on that.
We have one question online.
We probably have more than one, but I'm going to go to this one right now. This is from Masood House from Silver Spring. Thank you to Mr. Elrich for making this forum, and as a parent of a toddler for allowing us to be heard virtually. As you said, Montgomery County already has data centers that have not been intrusive. However, the rush to make mega data centers across the country is frightening. After researching other cities and states that have had data centers created, sometimes against the will of the residents, I would suggest, number one, Montgomery County needs data centers to very clearly, candidly, and transparently communicate how they will avoid environmental concerns, including stresses and costs on the electricity grid, dewatering practices, noise pollution, etc. Some cities, sorry, I'm trying to manage. Some cities have had electricity costs double. Dewatering has harmed their water supply, and air pollution has harmed their water supplies, and air pollution has caused respiratory and heart concerns. Number two, jobs need to guarantee long-term employment without the risk of outsourcing and layoffs for Montgomery County residents. Once the construction ends, data centers only need 50 to 200 highly skilled technical people to maintain. How will businesses prioritize MoCo residents? How can they train locals? Most often in these other cities, outsourcing traveling specialists take up those jobs that were meant for the local residents. Number three, tax breaks. Several cities have had years of property tax breaks with the exchange of potential future job creation. Those years have cost hundreds of millions of dollars of lost revenue in places that could have benefited from revenue to their schools, parks, fire and rescue services, police, and infrastructure.
All right, we'll take your question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shannon Brescher-Shea. I'm a resident of Rockville. I live over in Lincoln Park, which is a historically black community neighborhood. And I am also a volunteer with the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, Montgomery County chapter. As many people have stated, data centers lower quality of life for residents and threaten the ability for the county and state to meet its climate, public health, air quality, and other goals. Hyperscale data centers are those that host at least 5,000 servers, and they can require 14 to 20 times the amount or more of an office building, even as much as a small city. Nationally, 60% of the energy required will come from expansion and natural gas. And the emissions, not for Montgomery County specifically, but nationally, would be the same as putting 15.7 million additional gas-powered cars on the road. Meeting these energy needs may even require keeping old polluting coal plants going. PGM is attempting to extend the life of 2 coal plants outside of Baltimore that were scheduled to close in 2025. These plants will produce pollution that will affect people far beyond Baltimore, including in Montgomery County. And according to the National Resources Defense Council, the average resident across the Mid-Atlantic region would be paying about $70 a month extra on utility bills by 2028 because of data centers, unless there are significant reforms. And of course, we in Montgomery County alone cannot create those reforms, but we can do what we can in our area. Okay. I live in, like I said, I live right near an industrial area, and something that I've not heard mentioned is the fact that we need to ensure that these are, or mention less, that these are not burdensome on people who are already overburdened. I've seen the effects that this has in my neighborhood and has had historically, and we need to ensure that we can look at this through in climate justice lens.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Greg Davis. I'm a resident of Montgomery Village. I'm also an officer with Steamfitters Local 602. I see data centers as a positive impact. I believe anyone here, if they could tour a data center, would be quite impressed and would probably alleviate a lot of their fears and their concerns. These data centers bring an incredible economic benefit along with them. If you go to Loudoun County, look at Loudoun County schools. Every single Loudoun County school right now is either less than 5 years old or has been recently renovated in the past 5 years. Their police, their fire, their teachers are among the highest paid, are the highest paid in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Okay, these economic benefits cannot be ignored, especially by Montgomery County. Now, there's a lot of information you're going to hear. Please consider it carefully. Some of it positive, some of it negative. There's a lot of misinformation out there, information that has been carried on for the past 30 years. Data centers have been built in this area since the 90s. And I just hope that you will consider it carefully and consider the information with an even keel. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janae Byrne, and I'm a resident of Chevy Chase. Thank you all so much for putting this together, and thank you to everyone for coming here and making your voice heard. My first comment is about the proposals. One of the things that I noticed was that the proposals don't specify the size of the data center. I don't know if these are like hyperscale data center, like an IKEA-sized, facility, or are we thinking like a micro data center? Because just looking at the trends of data centers, I mean, it might be big right now, but they may scale down depending on, where the industry is trending. Another thing I wanted to flag, I know you mentioned earlier about the water. These data centers aren't just energy intensive, but they're water intensive. Data centers that come to Montgomery County should be required to bring alternative water solutions that don't interrupt public drinking supply, as well as water supply for agriculture in the county. I know you also mentioned something about these data centers bringing in gas. We should also look at the public health, impacts as well. We want clean air in Montgomery County. I also think it's important to get this right, as quantum technology is around the corner and can be more energy intensive than classical AI and crypto data centers due to its cooling infrastructure. We should commission a county study about quantum technology and its impacts in Montgomery County. And New York State has a quantum facility right now to reference. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amanda C. Broadnax. Thank you to the County Executive for holding this forum. I recently attended a forum in Baltimore, also in Prince George's County, also in New Orleans. And the thing that I'd like to recommend is that we do have a moratorium on any further action, just so we can form a task force. Look at these recommendations. I know Prince George's County, the report is 462 pages long, but it is online. I highly recommend that people take a look at it. And then also, Councilmember Even Glass, he's holding a public hearing meeting on February the 24th at 1:30. This is, people can weigh in about Bill 4-26. Highly recommend we look at that. This will give the opportunity for everyone to weigh in, do your own research, look at what you would like to see happen in Montgomery County, and come up with some solutions together. So thank you, and I look forward to participating.
We're going to go online really fast.
I'm going to read another question from Lee online. What is the best mechanism for residents to voice their complete opposition to the construction of any new data centers in Montgomery County? Okay. It feels like our representatives are talking about this like it's a foregone conclusion. Did I already say this one? I'm sorry. My apologies. I'm new at this moderating. I know I look like I've been around a long time, which I have, but let's see. Go ahead, Nordea, and then I'll find my place again.
Are they okay with the mic on the line? Or are they?
Thank you. My name is Dr. Abigail Hankin-Way. I live and raise my children here in Chevy Chase. I hold my medical license in Virginia, and I'm the board chair for Virginia Clinicians for Climate Action, and I work and serve patients just down the road from Loudoun County along the Shenandoah Valley. Unfortunately, physicians in Virginia are becoming national experts unwittingly about the health impacts of data centers, and I really want to focus on the idea that the policy recommendations should also include a recommendation for a study of the potential health impact. To list a completely incomplete list of possible health impacts, the increased particulate matter exposure, we worry about asthma, cardiovascular illness, reproductive outcomes, and long and short-term neurological outcomes being impacted by the impacts of data centers. And so I want to emphasize when we're talking about the economic pros and cons that we also talk about emergency department visits, hospital admissions, days missed from school, and days missed from work as part of that economic ledger. Thank you very much.
Good.
I'm Angie McCarthy. I'm the Maryland Conservation Advocate at Nature Forward, as well as the co-chair of Marylanders for Data Center Reform. Thank you all so much for putting this on, and thank you so much to Council President, Council Vice President for their upcoming ZTA. My question and comment is about requiring that data centers use backup generation that is fueled using clean energy rather than carbon-based fuels like diesel and natural gas. And if we can't use battery storage, which in our minds is the quickest way to get renewable energy as part of our generation package, then we should utilize technologies like load shifting and load shedding to ensure that we can create a more resilient grid. I also just wanted to say one of the things that I missed in the proposal was labor provisions. If data centers are going to be built in Montgomery County, we want to ensure that they are supporting the middle class, because in our minds that is an environmental justice issue, and we want to make sure that Marylanders are getting those jobs, they're getting paid well, they're getting health benefits, they're able to raise their families here in Montgomery County. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Hal Ginsberg from Kensington. I'm speaking on my own behalf as well as a Green Party member and an Our Revolution Montgomery County steering committee member. First, I just want to respond to the gentleman who was speaking about Loudoun County. This is from Bloomberg News in 2025 over the summer. The tech industry's sprawling and largely unchecked footprint hasn't just gobbled up Loudoun County farmland. New hulking warehouse-like buildings and the power facilities needed to run them increasingly butt up against schools, playgrounds, and people's backyards. Today, the land within a 1-mile radius of Briarfield, a housing community, and the adjacent neighborhood of Hiddenwood has become construction zones, but not for new housing. Instead, the two communities will soon be boxed in by massive commercial data centers set to be erected just steps from homeowners' property lines. That's the cost when you generate enormous sums of taxpayer revenue. It's a cost our county should not be prepared to pay when we have so much wealth, so much power in concentrated areas like in Bethesda. Real quick, in a time of ecocide and genocide, the last thing we should be doing is creating an enormous new demand source place for fossil fuel energy. Even if it's all 100% green, that energy that could be generated for homes, for schools, would now be used for these data centers rather than what they should be for our needs. So I strongly urge, as do my organizations, that we say no to the data centers.
So hey, Mark, how are you? So good evening, everybody. So I just want to come talk to the issue. So I just want to come here to talk about some of the big concern I'm having about the data center. So I got something for Google. It says data centers are considered problematic due to their extreme energy consumptions, high water usage for cooling, and significant carbon footprint. They strain local power grids and water resources, including increasing utility bills from residents. Additionally, they generate noise, pollution, and contribute to environment risk because when people heard about the news about on the data center, what it means is that the energy costs could go up, which could be a big issue for Montgomery County residents to pay for Pepco or Washington Gas or WSSC, including City of Rockville, because this is what everybody was very, very concerned, especially people with disabilities. Like, if they go outside, what it means is that the pollution can be a big problem for the people who's been dealing with health issues, especially for the people who loves to walk outside or they want to stay positive. That can be a big risk. So my suggestion is just to do some research, get some suggestions from ideas of what people can think about before you begin data center. As always, thank you.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Joelle Novi, Silver Spring resident, and I'm here with faith communities across the county working together through Interfaith Power and Light. And thank you for opening this forum for a critical conversation. I love the diverse and caring people of this county. I see from visiting congregations almost every weekend. I see from my kids being in the Montgomery County Public Schools. There are so many wise-hearted folks in this community and in this room tonight. And I know we make good decisions when we are thoughtful when we vote for the elected leaders in this room. We're thoughtful when we figure out together how to address our climate crisis. We're caring when we find ways to protect our neighbors in this harrowing time. But it's clear to me, it's clear to all of us who've watched what's happened in Virginia, that human beings with caring hearts are not driving the expansion of data centers throughout this country. It's not the expansion and imposition of these massive facilities is being driven not by real human wisdom, but by artificial intelligence and by tech corporations. And tech corporations, corporate interests, artificial intelligence cannot be wise-hearted because these robot zombies do not have hearts, and they don't breathe air, and they don't need clean water, and they don't have a stake in the future from having children. So we are calling first and foremost to slow down and create a task force that centers the voices of the human beings, the residents of this county, the real wisdom that needs to drive this conversation. I have a sticker that says real wisdom is better than AI, and I brought one, County Executive, for you too.
We're going to go online really fast.
I'm going to get back to a couple of the online questions or comments. From Anonymous, I think I'm getting feedback. I'm particularly concerned about dumping the wastewater into the Potomac. What are we doing to address this? That's one comment. Second comment from another Anonymous. How will we guarantee transparency of the data centers, electricity usage, water usage, degree of water pollution, and air pollution via generator usage? Another one from Joy, whether it's infrastructure or energy consumption, who is going to pay for the cost? Maryland constituents do not want their electric bills to increase any more than they already have. We do not want to subsidize the upkeep and costs of a growing power grid, which currently resides in 13 states, Maryland being one of them. Sorry, I'm on a roll here. Robert asked, or question I have is that data centers are causing the planet to enter into what climate scientists call freshwater bankruptcy. How can Montgomery County be a leader in climate and environmental justice by allowing a data center that most likely uses up our freshwater supply? We'll go back.
All right, we'll continue.
I think we can all agree that in terms of global, national, and local history, we are at a critical juncture in our history, and that nothing is necessarily immutable. what is the point of these data centers? They don't serve the public. They serve private specious interest, which unless you're following outdated economic models, they will never trickle down. These are more, they'll only suck up and fuel further privation. They will use resources that we cannot afford to lose at this moment, resources that will be better put to use to easing public burdens across our communities, across this country, and locally. These data centers are more akin to bombs than they are food and medicine and housing. Basically, this is just more of the same: pollution, poison, carcerality, and carnage. It's a rich man's gamble with the future at a time that we really shouldn't be gambling with our futures. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is George Carlisle. I'm in Germantown. My comment tonight is we've had lots of discussions about data centers. That's a big word. The hyperscale data centers that we've had conversations about do everything. We do not have to do hyperscale. We can do specialty data centers. I encourage the county executive to do reports of research on the workloads, email, storage, or some other compute workloads to see actually how much energy they take, and then we can choose and make the best decisions.
Since you mentioned it, one of the companies we met with actually does small data centers, and the focus of the data centers on concentrating computational power, not storage. So they're not providing matched storage so the county could store everything it wants in a data center across the river. The sole purpose is to concentrate the computing power and to use the computing power for research, not for storage. So their data center is magnitude smaller than the kind of thing they're doing. And they're looking for that kind of market where they can provide computational ability, not so much storage ability.
We're going to go online.
I'm going to and also ask or tell people that this tall gentleman in the blue jacket is the last speaker for this group in person, and I'm going to go to couple more, sorry. A question I have is that data centers are causing the planet, did that one? I have spoken to, from Sumic, I have spoken to people in other states and counties who had similar promises from their legislator, but now once the data center opened, it has been a disappointment, and most of the people regret having a data center near them. Basil, thank you for holding this forum. After thorough review of data centers located near communities, the noise complaints are unresolvable. The data center noise is not intermittent. The ground vibrations also do not stop. How will proposed centers be located to disturb zero existing property owners? And I think this may be the last one, but I may get back to it at the end. From Tom, what baselining will you be doing for air issues before any data centers are built? I believe the county has only one ambient air monitor near Lake Frank Bernard, and it only monitors for some Clean Air Act criteria pollutants, but it is not really representative of the air we breathe in the county. I believe the county should set up more ambient air monitors closer to dense populations to get a baseline before data centers are here, and at least some of those monitors should include monitoring for hazardous air pollutants.
My name's Kaya. I'm a resident of Bethesda, Maryland. So I heard a lot of people talking about the environmental stuff, so I want to look a little bit outside that, even though I totally agree. So data centers right now are kind of being sold to us as, engines of economic growth, but that story doesn't really hold up if we look at places like Virginia. So these facilities are capital intensive, not actually labor intensive. So once the construction is over, they employ a tiny, very highly specialized workforce. So even though this looks like quote unquote job creation, It's actually an artificial boost to economic stats, and residents are left actually paying the real cost. Just to give you an example, in Virginia, a 2024 study showed that these residents are going to be paying up to $37 more per month on energy by 2040. And when that cost of living is voters' top concern, that really matters. And just for more context, a 2025 CNBC study showed that Microsoft data centers are receiving tens of hundreds of millions of dollars in sales tax exemptions, and 42 states now offer that same similar giveaway. So obviously when tax breaks don't pay for themselves, it's pretty obvious who's going to land up doing that. And it's just basically wealth extraction upward and outward. And to another person's point here about hyperscale AI data centers, they're designed very clearly to serve global markets, not local needs, and these corporations specifically target places with cheap land and weaker local governments and then demand these massive tax breaks to move in. And like other people here today said, these data centers would also entrench big tech and also potentially surveillance infrastructure directly in our county, expanding the capacity to monitor our neighbors everywhere. And like someone else mentioned about, who is actually the companies who are going to be given the space to be in these buildings, there's no real protocol or anything that talks about if a company like Palantir, who has a documented, track record of human rights abuses and surveilling our neighbors and all of the stuff that's tied to ICE, are really it's further complicating that situation. And it's pretty clear that we do not want an infrastructure that enables that in our county. So we should just be asking a simple question: who benefits and who pays? Because right now the answer isn't our community.
Hi, my name is Alex. I am a lifelong resident of Maryland and a former resident of Silver Spring. I heard a little bit of this mentioned by the gentleman over here, but there are many different types of data centers. It really is an umbrella term. There have been data centers in Northern Virginia since the 90s, and the economic benefits that Virginia has gotten from those data centers was not built in the last 3 years. Now, all the economic activity around data centers in the last 3 years have not been centered around the same type of centers we've seen since the 90s. Since the 90s, it's been much less energy intensive operations going on in these centers. It's been things like mass storage, identity verification, things that would run social media or just general websites. What we've seen in the last 3 years is more centered around large-scale generative AI, large language models, things like ChatGPT, Sora, et cetera. These data centers use very specialized chips, which require way more energy than the old storage-based data centers. And the economic implications of that is that they do not make money, right? OpenAI, until I believe just last month, was America's leading generative AI company, and that is no longer the case. It is now second. They have reportedly been asking for a government bailout. They're going code red internally. That's also why these new wave of data centers have been relying on making backroom deals with utility companies because they cannot afford their bills, they cannot afford their taxes. In PG County, they passed a law, the Data Center Task Force passed a law that said that these data centers are tax exempt for property taxes, and that's because they just do not make enough money to be able to pay these taxes. It's not economically viable for the county. Thank you.
My name is Ziri Zinda. 20 years of IT experience and a cybersecurity expert. Based on all of what I've heard here today from people in high school right up to people that have more experience than some of us have been biologically alive, including the very first man that started, my only question is this. If all of what the people actually want isn't viable with these data centers, it can't work, is it possible that the data centers will be rejected completely, or that's, I guess, the mega data center or whatever this one is that is coming, or is this ultimately all some kind of Machiavellian type business where the pawns get to feel as though they're of consequence and really things are going to go on whether anybody likes it or not? That's it.
You ask a very fair question. My assumption is if it doesn't pay, if it pollutes and it damages the environment, and there's no real upside other than to the people who own this stuff, there's no reason for the county to engage in doing it. I'll give you an example of, just right in this building. We used to have a room down here that was filled with hard drives, servers, and that's where our storage was. And we had to maintain it. It failed a couple of times. There were things that happened, and the county moved to the so-called cloud. I asked somebody what the cloud was, and they said, all those drives you have down there? Well, those drives are in another building. The advantage to the county and to any enterprise that does this is, for us, we had to have somebody always on monitoring the drives, because if something went down, it could impair your data or your ability to function. The beauty of a data center was they have very few employees. These things don't fail all the time. So they're able to rapidly address something if it goes wrong with your hard drive, because it's in a little cage. Our drives are in a little cage over there. And if something goes wrong, they can go in there and they can fix it quickly. It was educational for me because it's still based on drives. They're just located in a different place. And the big saving was the saving on labor and the efficiency of that as far as the county government would be concerned. But all the other issues that people raise, we are spending hard drives that consumed electricity here. They're spending hard drives that consume electricity there. Some of this stuff is, if you're going to store data or use data, you're going to have that cost for hard drives wherever you do it. All these other issues of how big and what it does, what it requires in terms of water, what you have to do you wind up polluting the air, all those are really legitimate issues, and they need to be able to address them. So this is not a foregone conclusion. Yeah.
Can we finish? We've got 2 more speakers here, and we've got a couple more online comments.
Hi, my name is Dulcinea Weehee Moody, and I actually think it was kind of convenient that I went after the gentleman who just went and heard your comments just now, because I'm just a regular working class person. I don't own a car because I can't afford one in this economy. I ride the bus everywhere, and I live in low-income housing because the cost of rent in Montgomery County or anywhere in this country that I would choose to go is almost 60% or more of my income. And I just want to point out that what everybody else has often been saying, the human costs of data centers. I hear people like yourselves and everybody who loves data centers so much talk about the economic benefits. I will never see those economic benefits. People in my class, working poverty class, will never see those benefits. We will see the consequences. Data centers have been shown in my hometown in California to be catastrophic on marginalized communities. They cause what are probably going to likely be, we find out 30, 40, 50 years from now, autoimmune disorders, things like what Teflon did to us, and we thought to ourselves, well, this is progress. Progress for who? Progress at the cost of who? The cost of what? We see teenagers in here having to take time in the middle of the week, come and speak on this when they should be at home doing their homework or living teenage lives. Not that they shouldn't be here, because you absolutely should, but we're seeing that this is going to come at the cost of their futures. We're going to see catastrophic environmental consequences from this. You talk about putting the water back in at the same temperature. Is the temperature the only thing that we have to worry about with that water? Montgomery County has pre-existing issues with the water system and the quality of the water. And so we're talking about running some water across some batteries and some data chips, and then we just put it back as if it wouldn't be a problem. We talk about the noise pollution, and will it bother people in their homes? Is it going to kill birds? Is it going to affect migratory patterns? The sound in the ground, is it going to affect all the animals that burrow in the ground? And whether or not you answer these questions, we're still looking at this from, well, the cost benefits. Again, the cost benefits for who? Because it's not for working class America. And if it is, it's for you just admitted yourself, the very few employees who will work in these data centers. So that's not going to create an overhauled economic system for working class people. So I just want to remind you to think really, really intensely about not the benefits to the cost of economic growth for people who can be investors, like people who hold public office, but the cost benefits that we will not experience as people who are working class, who are already suffering the consequences of climate catastrophe. Thank you.
My name is Jeffrey Berglund. I have a bachelor's in computer science. I'm a resident of Sandy Spring and grew up in Montgomery County, and I'm speaking as a resident of the county. So the largest concerns I have are what protections are in place to protect the people of Montgomery County. Encroachment and pollution in residential and agricultural zoning affecting our health and our peace of mind, and increases in electricity bills and water bills, chief among my concerns. To resolve these concerns, some of the measures mentioned in the draft that was presented would help. Requiring data centers to be solely in industrial zoning fixes a lot of these for the health and noise impact on residents. And requiring that they pay for their own electricity and not be subsidized by the residents of Montgomery County in any way helps resolve a lot of the others. I would ask that for more protections against the rising energy costs be implemented, holding the companies accountable for following regulations, their energy usage and bills, and when they close down in 5 years when their tech is out of date. And until legislation is implemented to properly resolve these issues and concerns, I would suggest that there be a moratorium on all building and planning of new data centers. Thank you.
Take a couple.
I'm going to read 2 more comments from online. To those of you who are online whose questions or comments I didn't get to, sorry, for those online whose questions or comments I don't get to, those are being recorded, and we will be sharing those with both the county executive and the county council. So I'm going to read 3 more. Comment, will the county be mapping out appropriate areas for data centers, as have Frederick and PG County?
Yes, that's part of the process.
Okay. There are 2 Verizon buildings facing each other on Route 29 between Fairland and Musgrove Road. They seem to have very few people working in those buildings now. Are they data centers? We'll answer that offline. Will the county plan for handling e-waste from data centers? And finally, the last one is neighborhoods with grinder pumps rely on electricity to use toilets and water and are highly vulnerable to power outages. Maryland already has 44 data centers. Also, electricity costs are high enough, as is water costs. Montgomery County residents don't need data centers. So with that, I'm gonna couple other things. There will be this session has been recorded. If you'd like to go back and see a recording of it, it is on Montgomery County Government's YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, and we are Montgomery County MD, and you'll be able to find that. Again, the email for sending in information or comments is climate@montgomerycountymd.gov, and there are copies of this proposed, the ideas online on the county's homepage, www.montgomerycountymd.gov. Thank you very much for coming. Oh, what date is that? On February the 24th, there is a 23rd. I'm sorry. On February 24th at 1:30, there is a county council public hearing around this issue. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for coming and taking your evening to give us your thoughts.
Interesting. Yeah. Not surprising.
Ingresar a participar para que se puedan empapar bien con el proceso de adquisiciones de nuestro condado de Montgomery. La próxima es